Hi, welcome back. This is part 2 of What If Naruto Was Secretly a Girl and Secretly a Prodigy. Sorry it's been so long. I meant to leave the video for only a day, maybe 2, but I ended up getting roped into something with a friend of mine, needed to go help them, and then immediately after that, literally the next morning, I had to go on a trip. So I have been gone away from Wi-Fi and stuff for 10 days or something. I'm sorry. Here it is, part 2 of What If Naruto Was Secretly a Girl, Secretly a Prodigy. So we start off with Naruto being in a room, waking up to the sound of her alarm that she'd set, and because of her previous knowledge of the night beforehand, she expected to wake up and be rather drained because she was using up so much chakra yesterday. She did not. She woke up and she felt very refreshed, believing that she had just slept longer than she had meant to. She looked at the clock and seen that it was, in fact, 5:50, which was 10 minutes before she was supposed to meet up with Kakashi and her team. Quickly grabbing something to eat and a quick glass of milk, she rushed out of her apartment, forgetting to put on her jacket. Noticing halfway there that she had forgotten her normally oversized orange jacket, she immediately froze and used a henge to try and cover up her looks. As most people weren't out this early and she was very, very anxious, the henge only took a second and she kept running again. She ran to the meetup at Training Ground 7, and that's when she seen both Sakura and Sasuke looking at her with incredulous looks on their face, saying that she was late. Naruto looked around and said, well, Kakashi-sensei isn't here, so I'm early, technically. Sakura just gave her a huff and walked away, just thinking that it's Naruto, he's being a dope again. Naruto, knowing that today was going to be a challenge, she assumed that the survival test Kakashi was talking about was going to be some kind of spar. So she checked her kunai pouch that was on her hip and seen that she had 10 kunai, 20 shuriken, 2 explosive tags, and a food pill. 1 food pill. She checked it down in her head, making sure that she had enough, and that's when she went to go over to the side and punch the log that was next to Sasuke. Sasuke, seeing what she was doing, was like, I'm not going to let the dough beat me in any aspect, so he started training by punching the log as well. Around an hour later, Naruto stopped and seen that both Sasuke and Sakura were very winded, very hungry, and that they had obviously not eaten the way she had. Because Naruto knew that the test was going to be very straining, she decided to say, screw what Kakashi-sensei said, I'm going to eat. And she had completely forgotten that her team was not the same as her. She went back to She went back to the log and sat underneath it, hoping against hope that Kakashi's test wouldn't be that difficult. Immediately after thinking this, Kakashi showed up, it being 2.5 hours late, it now being 8:30. Sakura yelled at him indignantly, thinking that he was being overly he was being overly late for no reason, and Kakashi just came up with a dumb excuse of, I had to help an old lady carry her groceries around. Naruto, noticing that he was being fairly unserious, decided to just pay attention and hope that he made some kind of slip-up to explain what the test was. Kakashi pulled out an alarm clock and said that now that we're all ready, here's the test. You have until noon to take these bells from me. If you get a bell, you pass. If you don't, you're going to be tied to that post over there while I eat my lunch in front of you. And this made both Sakura and Sasuke groan, and Naruto pretend to groan, thinking that it would be a good idea to make Kakashi think that she hadn't eaten either. Kakashi said that the test would start when he says go. Naruto being like, okay, let's think about this. Waited for him to say go. He said 3, 2, 1, go. And Naruto immediately jumped into the bushes. Being rather good at hiding her presence because of all of the villagers' attacks and stuff on her every year, Naruto decided that she was going to linger a little bit out in the open and hide her presence, see if she could trick Kakashi. Kakashi didn't notice her and actually was fairly confused, thinking that she had ran too far away from his senses. Kakashi, not noticing her and her picking up on this, she made a shadow clone and told it to go and attack Kakashi from behind. Kakashi, knowing that something wasn't right and feeling a presence behind him, he simply ran up and backflipped over Naruto's shadow clone. Naruto's shadow clone, being only about half as powerful as Naruto, was able to throw 3 or 4 shuriken before getting knocked on her ass and dispelling. Kakashi, noticing that it was a shadow clone, was like, oh crap, I still don't know where Naruto is, decided to just flush out Sakura and Sasuke before going to Naruto. Going after Sakura first, thinking that she would be the weak link, Kakashi put Sakura in a genjutsu, just like in canon. She passed out screaming. And then Kakashi left her there looking for Sasuke. Naruto, who had been following Kakashi, seen that Sakura was out cold, and grabbed a hold of her, bringing her to the training posts out in the clearing. Putting her up against it and using a quick round of shadow clones to check to make sure that Kakashi wasn't around, Naruto said, all right, let's go and find the Uchiha. After looking around for probably 5 minutes, she came across a funny sight of Sasuke having his head sticking out of the ground, with the rest of him being buried after the headhunter jutsu that Kakashi had put on him. Sasuke, seeing Naruto, said, Dobe, help me, I need to get up. Naruto saying, give me a second, emo boy, I need to do something real quick. Made a quick set of shadow clones and sent them to perimeter the general area. Kakashi, not having left very far, noticed this and managed to slip between the shadow clones and decided to go straight for Naruto. Naruto, sensing a presence behind her, quickly ducked under a kick that would have kicked her right in the ribs. And Naruko was fairly upset that Kakashi had made it past all of her clones. Sasuke saying, "Get me out of here, I'm the only one who can take him on," made Naruko stop, look at him, and just frown. Because Naruko was more powerful than him, but just decided to hide it, she couldn't blame him for thinking that he was more powerful than her, but she could criticize him for thinking he was stronger than a Jonin when he was just a fresh out of the academy genin. Naruko quickly got into a little fight with Kakashi, throwing a couple of punches and ducking under as many and dodging as many attacks as she could. But in about a minute, Kakashi was able to get the upper hand and throw a quick punch to Naruko's shoulder. Naruko's shoulder being sort of dislocated, partially out of the socket, made her grunt in pain, but she used her good hand to grab a kunai and throw it at Kakashi. After Kakashi dodged it using fairly little effort, she decided to use a strategic approach and run away to go get Sakura. Because she assumed that Sakura would be awake now, she ran and grabbed Sakura. She ran and got away from Kakashi to go grab Sakura, leaving her 10 clones to deal with Sasuke and Kakashi on their own. About 2 minutes later, Naruko came up on Sakura, who was still sleeping, and decided that, you know what, being friends with her isn't what I need right now. I need her to wake up so that we can take on Kakashi-sensei together. So Naruko made a quick decision to smack Sakura over the face. Sakura woke up immediately and punched Naruko in her bad shoulder, and this dislocated it fully. Naruko grunted in pain again and said, "Sakura, can you help me get my dislocated shoulder back in place? You just made it worse." Sakura, not wanting to, but understanding that she had seriously hurt Naruko, decided to help her put her dislocated shoulder back into place. Naruto again grunted in pain when it went back into its socket, and then he said, "Me and you need to help out Sasuke and get going. We need to work as a team or we're not going to beat him." Sakura, thinking that Naruto was just going to take a bell for himself, decided to run off and try to find Sasuke on her own. That's when she stumbled upon a comical scene for others, but she screamed in horror. Naruko, or as she's seen it, Naruto, had 5 shadow clones fighting against Kakashi, 5 of which had already been dispelled, the rest remaining having a bit of leeway because they weren't as crowded. Kakashi was throwing a couple of hands with one of Naruko's shadow clones, and that's when another one came up and roundhouse kicked him in the back of the head. Kakashi, thinking that there were only 4 shadow clones left because he had thought that he had knocked another one out, did not expect this and took a quick faceplant into the dirt. Sasuke, seeing that Naruko's shadow clones, which weren't even as powerful as the original Naruko, were able to go toe-to-toe with Kakashi for longer than he did, seethed in anger and decided to yell and scream for help. Sakura, seeing this, fainted again after seeing what she assumed was just Sasuke's head sticking out of the ground. Naruko came up behind her, smacked her again, and this time when Sakura went to punch her, she dodged it, thinking that Sakura was just going to overextend herself. She did, and ended up face-planting into a tree. Naruto then decided to make a large group of shadow clones, this being 15 instead of the 10 that she had originally, and send them in to help fight her Kakashi Sensei. Because Naruto had so many clones, this now being 20 on Kakashi at the time, Naruto decided to go up and grab Sasuke with a bit of help. Naruto, using just some basic chakra control, using enhancements on her hands and feet, ended up digging Sasuke out of the ground by punching it repeatedly with enhanced strikes. It took a minute, so when Naruto looked around, she seen that Kakashi had already taken out 10 of her shadow clones, and that's when she decided to come up with a plan. She told Sasuke, if I'm going to get you out, then you need to work with me and Sakura. I think I figured out what the test is about. The bells, regardless of how there's only 2, must mean that all 3 people can pass, because there's never been a 2-man team in all of Konoha's history. It's always been a 3-man team. Sasuke, not believing her, but still wanting to get out, just agreed, and that's when Naruto told him her plan. She would perform the Shadow Clone Jutsu and distract Kakashi, while Sasuke snuck up behind him and delivered another kick to the back of his head. While this happened, Sakura would then run in as fast as she could and grab the bells from Kakashi's waist. Sasuke, seeing that it was the only real option at the time, because Naruto was famously stubborn and wouldn't listen to other people's plans, just agreed out of reluctance and decided to listen to Naruto's advice. He got out of this little hole and rushed into the trees and told Sakura the plan. Because it was Sasuke telling her the plan and not Naruto, she immediately went along with it, thinking that Sasuke made the plan and that it would be the best plan, and Naruto would be shoved, as she would have a bell and Sasuke would have a bell. Then Naruto made 15 more shadow clones again, now having another 20 on Kakashi's case. Kakashi was starting to get tired of fighting so many of Naruto's clones, and that's when he decided to use a substitution to get out of there. Naruto, being a sensory type ninja, I don't know if I mentioned this in the previous part, but she is a sensory type ninja, sensed where he had come out, and that's when Naruto decided to use the jutsu she had practiced the night before, the Rasengan. Naruto, running up and seeing where Kakashi stood on a tree branch, quickly jumped, grabbing onto the tree branch right below him, and flung herself up to the Jonin's face. And right before the Jonin could make a sound or go to hit her, as he didn't realize she knew where he was, Naruto created a Rasengan in her hand, smaller than a normal Rasengan because she was pressed for time, wanting to make it as quickly as possible. Kakashi was visibly shocked, even letting out a small gasp before the Rasengan grinded into his chest, his flak jacket taking most of the impact. Sasuke, seeing the technique that Naruto had used, quickly ran and started to attack Kakashi from behind. Kakashi, sensing him, ended up just grabbing him and trying to push him away again. Sasuke and Naruto ended up double-teaming Kakashi and pushing him back into the clearing where all of Naruto's shadow clones were. With all of the shadow clones' help, they were able to hold Kakashi down for about 10 seconds, this 10 seconds being enough time for Sakura to run in and grab the bells. Naruto, seen this and immediately punched Kakashi in the face, aiming for his good eye, trying to blind him. And that's when he said, "Sakura, hand us the bells." Sakura handed one to Sasuke and kept one for herself. Sasuke, seeing as it was Naruto's plan that had got them the win, handed his bell to Naruto to be friendly and said, "Sakura, just be nice." Sasuke, being uncharacteristically nice to Naruto of all people, made Sakura fume in anger, but she was going to hold her tongue so that her crush didn't get mad at her. Kakashi noticed that his bells were gone and then looked over at a smiling Naruto, a grinning Sasuke, and a slightly moody Sakura who still had a smile on her face. After Naruto explained that the whole point of the exam was for teamwork, as no normal genin would be able to take on a jonin on their own, Kakashi reluctantly said, "You all pass," and brought them over to the training posts. Naruto, looking around, asking what was going on. Kakashi said, "Well, since you didn't eat breakfast this morning, I brought lunch for everyone, and just in case you passed, I was going to give it to you, and if you didn't, then you wouldn't get any." Naruto, having her stomach rumble because she didn't get anything major to eat, it was only like a quick snack bar, immediately ended up chowing down as hard as she could on her bento box, and while she was doing so, she looked over to Sasuke and Sakura, who were eating the food with even more enthusiasm than her, which surprised her as the emo never did anything that enthusiastically, and Sakura was typically more mopey or more downcast when Sasuke lectured her. Naruto, seeing this as a time to talk, decided to try to start up a conversation. Naruto first tried it with Sakura, but Sakura just ignored her, thinking that, Naruto is really dumb and I don't need to listen to him. But Sasuke, on the other hand, did strike up a conversation with Naruto. Naruto talked to Sasuke for about an hour while they were eating, and Kakashi was rather happy with what they were doing, trying to be friendly and nice to each other. Naruto ended up going, and after their little training trip was over, Kakashi told them that they were going to start doing D-rank missions, and Naruto was like, "Oh joy, chores, yay." Sakura and Sasuke didn't know what she meant, but just pushed it off as Naruto being lazy, which which people knew that he had hung out with Shikamaru and had roughed around with Choji, meaning that they assumed that he was just as lazy as the two. Naruto ended up going out and eating Ichiraku ramen, saying that she was officially a genin. The Ichiraku family being like, "Oh yeah, good for you, Naruto." Ayame was the only female older than Naruto that knew that she was a girl. And other than the Hokage the only adult man that knew that she was a girl was Tucci, the Ichiraku ramen dude. Naruto was like happy talking to her, and then she said, "Well, since tomorrow I'm doing D-rank missions, I'm going to start packing up as much food as I can, because I'm not going to have as much time to come here and eat. Ayame, understanding, said that she would go shopping with Naruko whenever she felt like, and to hopefully come and see her before the end of the day. Naruko said, yeah, sure, and went back to her house, hoping against hope to find something interesting to do, and that's where I'm going to leave it off. Sorry, this one's rather short, but I have been like starving for a while now, and I made this video just because I noticed like I've been off for like 2 weeks now. I hope you all have a great day. I'm sorry, guys, girls, and whatever you call yourself. But this video was rather short. I'm sorry. I'm going to go back and watch the previous part myself to make sure I remember everything, because I am a forgetful person, and I will try to have part 2 out tomorrow, but no promises. Thanks. Bye. Yeah.